welcome to a very special episode of The Diplomats. This has actually been recorded once with two other people and myself, but due to the interwebs and my technological incompetence, we couldn't make it work. But we're going to try here a second time, this time with more competitors and more analysis. We're analyzing the first ever Speedboat finals on the Nexus Diplomacy server, which is run by Pez Demer or David, all the way from Italy. Actually, I think he's the leader now of Nexus. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Nexus and why you started this tournament and what you're trying to achieve in the diplomacy world?
Okay, thanks. When we began to start the Speedboat League, we tried to make people play fast games because Nexus has a tradition of long resolutions game. Instead, in the last 6 months, we have begun to play fast resolutions games, gunboat tourneys, and Cold War tournaments. So we have a more different kind of tournament, and not only the full price tournament that is the traditional event of Nexus, and that is playing the season 5 finals in these days.
Okay, fantastic. Pez, if you came to America with that accent, I think you could speed date through women if you needed to.
Okay.
Just like a speedboat game. I think you could do very well here, just with the accent.
I'm trying to speak slower.
No, it's perfect, is what I'm saying. Okay, so joining us, we have 4 players, or including myself from the game. We'll go ladies first. Saren, who played Turkey. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Ed.
And then we have Dave Smith, second, because he's already recorded this once, who played Russia. He's smoking a cigarette out by the railroad tracks where the homeless hobos and prostitutes are. Dave, how are you doing?
Doing good, Ed. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, and then I'm not going to get your name right. We have Kutusov from Germany, who has the distinction of, I don't know how you did it, having been in a Nexus season finals traditional game. You're in that game and you played this game at the same time as Germany. So tell us a little bit about like whether or not you're getting any sleep.
I'm getting zero sleep these days. I'm completely exhausted. It's also a difficult period. It's a difficult school period, so I'm really out of it. I can't wait until it's over. So
Yeah,
but in general, it's fun. It's fun. It's a fun experience.
It is I made friends for life after season 2 finals, and also enemies for life. Oh, and look, we're admitting someone in. Our winner has just joined us. He's connecting to audio. Before we talk to him, though, Saren, just give us a brief background on. We've done this with Pez. There's a special interview, but just give us a background on how long you've been playing diplomacy and what attracted you to it.
Yeah, so I started playing back in May during the lockdown, just because I was looking for a way to pass the time, and I remembered about this game Diplomacy that I'd read about once. So then obviously I started playing and I never looked back. It was actually the negotiations and the diplomacy, like the small d diplomacy, that got me into it in the first place, if you can believe it. But then I realized I was terrible at all that, so now I just played gunboat.
What do you like about gunboat? Does it you have to deal with people?
If you want to put it that way. No, it's the opposite of many players for me. I feel much more in control in gunboat, in control of my own destiny, because you just write whatever orders you feel like writing, and you don't have to like pass them by an ally. You don't have to get approval for them. So it's all about like whether you can write the order to get you where you need to go.
All right, Dave, what attracted you to diplomacy and why did you start playing Speedboat?
Well, I mean, just the game itself. I love maps. I love strategy games. But I started really liking Speedboat and Gunboat because, like Sarah said, I like feeling in control. And also sometimes online, I just didn't want to deal with 2 a.m. missives about Burgundy when they require like 2 pages of content just to convince themselves not to bounce again. Just not my stuff.
And is it Kutusov? Is that the way to pronounce it? What's the best way to put it?
Kutuzov.
Kutusov. Okay, so I remember from your interview on Diplomacy Broadcast Network, you've only been playing what, around 6 months or so?
Yeah, 6 months. I too started during the lockdown period. And I didn't play much Gumbo. I played more Speedboat actually. But I played more as a training for press games just to see different tactics and strategies than as a professional level.
And for me, I'm a lawyer, so I'm good verbally. I have horrible math skills. I'm not particularly adept tactically, but what I like to do in diplomacy is talk to people, either through the written word or spoken word. And I play this variant because it forces me to try and think about my tactics, which I'm sure Saren has a lot to complain about, but it helps me. That's the reason I play. Okay, Board, is it Borgijan? Borgi, you know, you've joined the winner. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Just let me know if my audio is okay. It's Borgigan. Borg for short works though.
Okay, so tell us how long you've been playing diplomacy and how you got started on Speedboat.
So I've been playing since 2011 in high school. I've always been a tactical player. When I've always played press, and my discussions are about, you know, what is the correct tactical solution here to achieve the optimal objective, and you know, negotiations are very focused on the board state itself. So playing Gunboat was kind of an experiment of, okay, how much could I pick up on intuiting the correct solutions just based on the board state without any communication at all. And that was surprisingly much more approachable than I expected. I think the group that we play with in Discord, because everyone kind of came up in a similar environment, all has a similar understanding of the meta, and that really helps make that a much smoother process rather than if everyone had their complete own ideas and no one had the slightest idea of what other people would be doing.
Okay, let's talk quickly about the countries that we got assigned here before we start talking about it. I drew Austria, which in traditional diplomacy I love because I can talk to lots of people and I can usually make 1 or 2 friends and figure out where I'm going to go from there. I haven't had good luck anywhere in the East in Speedboat and Gunboat, you know, to be honest. So I was like, okay. And Dave, what about you in Russia? I know Russia's generally not well liked, although Saren did challenge everyone and volunteered for Russia.
So Russia's tough because they straddled both stalemate lines. They're not really a northern power or a southern power. But in this game, it was particularly tough because Turkey opened against Russia with the trident opening of moving Smyrna to Armenia, and England opened north as well. So that's just going to be tough for Russia at the best of days. But even when they don't do that, it's more often times than not that Russia's going to have a bad game.
Okay, Saren, Turkey.
Absolutely hate it because there's almost no way to influence what's going on the board, and you're pretty much just stuck in the corner for the whole game unless someone makes a mistake and lets you out.
And Kutuzov, Germany.
Germany is one of my favorite countries in press games. In Gumbo and Speedboat, I like Germany, but I have some troubles during the mid-game, end-game phase. I usually can have difficulty handling my ally and don't know if to stab him or not, or to just concentrate elsewhere. But it's a nice country, especially with this meta at the moment.
Right. And is it, I know you said it, is it Borge? If you could do it one more time for me, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, Borge.
Borge will work. Italy.
With Italy, I don't really feel like I know how to play Italy. I basically
I think you do
just
now. Find me as Austria.
Well, so basically just wait for openings, but I don't really know how to create openings on a strategic level. So in this game, they presented themselves to me.
Yeah. And look, I think I really misplayed a lot, which in the recording that we don't have that's in the Ethernet somewhere, Saren and Dave helped me through. But just so you guys know, I mean, particularly you, Borge, since you're in my theater, don't be afraid to criticize me. I'm fine with it. I can handle it. I'm trying to get better, and I don't think Saren would be afraid of criticizing anyone. But everyone should speak honestly and openly about like what they saw and what they were thinking. All right, hey Pez, did you think you knew who was going to win when you saw the assignments?
No, I was happy for my fellow Italian Kutuzov that he got Germany because I know he likes it. But there was no certainty about the development of the game.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about 1901, and we'll start in the West with Kutuzov. All right, so it's pretty standard opening. It looks like to me, except England moves to Edinburgh, not York, and then I think Saren has thoughts on why this was misplayed. But tell me what you were thinking at least when this happened.
Well, I actually thought it was misplayed too, because in Gunboat it's usually not a good idea to open north, because if France decides to go in the channel, it becomes so messed up for England. At this point, I played neutral because I knew that France would have supported his move in Burgundy, so I just opted for the classical opening. I was not sure in spring 1901 if I wanted to do the usual EG thing or instead stick with France since England opened north. But then in fall 1901, I changed my mind several times, actually. I think this was one of the main problems. One of the main problems I had in this game is that I didn't have a real strategy since it would change every turn. In fact, you could see that sometimes I would mess up. I would take people's centers, still wanting to be friends with them, like it happened with France. But with this opening, the East was interesting, but pretty standard in the end. Italy, I was surprised Austria didn't do the hedgehog opening, because I was sure that Italy would open to Trieste because it was the only way he could have a reasonable game, not caring obviously of how Austria would handle it. But it was pretty normal in the end.
Okay, Saren, comment on the English-French strategy and how you think it should be played in Gunboat, knowing that you're not the authority on how to play Gunboat, but you have strong opinions, and I want them to be out.
I don't actually mind opening north. Like, I rarely do it myself, but I think if you're gonna open north, Eddie is the way to go. Like, it gives you a fair amount of options, and if France opens the way he does here, then you're in a pretty good position. Like, I don't mind the spring 01 opening. I was a bit curious. I'm a bit curious, Kutuzov, why you say that. Like, the only way Italy can have a reasonable game is by opening to Trieste. This is pretty much what I just wrote, like a mini essay about. Some of you might have seen it, but like I don't like the hedgehog. Like I think the hedgehog is just depriving yourself of a chance to do well in the game. So I don't think Austria should hedgehog, and I don't think Italy should open to Trieste either. But I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
No, sorry, I used the wrong words. I was thinking that Italy would have opened to Trieste because you would have more chances of doing well in this game, not because you would have a reasonable game. Instead, Austria, I mean, if I were Austria, I certainly would have had the hedgehog in any case, because I don't like having Italy in Trieste. Because I'm one of those players that I would never do a killer punt, but of course, what Ed did was fine anyway. I mean, it was
Well,
just my personal view.
So on that point, uh, so it's different for everybody. Where I've struggled with is in communication in Gunboat, since you can't communicate. And my goal here was to show Italy we're going to be friends. You can basically do anything you want, and you did a lot. And I was like, I'm going to go down with the ship of the AI, and I'm going to show my loyalty to you, because where I failed in Gunboat is making a friend. And so was I happy with it? No. But I said, okay, worst case scenario, it doesn't work. I really would have loved for him to move to Aegean. I didn't expect it. But with the move to Apulia, I wasn't outraged by the move to Trieste. But I do want to circle back to one question, and Pez can answer, or anyone else. But it does seem like in the Gunboat meta, because of what Brother Board has written about how to play England, not just recently, but he's been writing about it for a long time. He's very much in favor of London to Channel, Eddie to North, Liverpool to York for that opening. When I've played England, sometimes I've played that to success and sometimes not. But do any of you have a feeling on that opening?
Two slight comments on that point. First of all, with your comment about picking a friend, my experience is that in Gunboat, you primarily pick a friend by picking a target and simply not doing things that are counterproductive to going for that target. So if you clearly indicate a direction that you're trying to go, then your neighbors will look at that. Any neighbors that feel like they have aligned interests can go in that direction as well. You don't need to particularly go out of your way to make friends. You just kind of need to have shared interests and be around other players who have some basic level of competency in target selection. So that's that point. The other point is with regards to Brother Board's writings. My experience, like I mentioned earlier about the group that we play in the server, is that Brother Board writes for the WebDip meta as an entire massive website. Our meta in this group of like 20 to 30 players is very different than the meta that he writes about, and I don't find that his writings translate.
Okay, well, that's good to know. All right, so we'll just sort of quickly go to, fall 1901. You, of course, Borge, you convoy to Tunis, and I take Greece. You stay in Trieste. We bounce in Galicia. So tell me what you're thinking here at this point.
At this point, I didn't want to do anything that would be harmful to you. Too much guesswork. If I had moved to Serbia, it could have cut support into Greece and therefore maybe bounced you in Greece, and that would have kept you on 3 units. I didn't want to do anything like that. So my only option was really to hold in order to avoid messing something up. Yeah, I didn't really like that option because it's just an army, like it's not momentum. But I didn't feel like I could do anything with that army that wouldn't mess you up. And I wasn't trying to mess you up. I was trying to go after Turkey while getting any builds that you would generously decide to give to me for free. So
yeah. Is there any thought that you ever moved to Budapest in that situation?
I was debating it, but in this situation, no. If Russia was in Galicia, then yeah, sure. Or yeah, like I could imagine some other weird permutations. But Budapest just seems like it would be offensive to you. Like it just seems like you'd be sitting there going, okay, this guy's attacking me in a weird way. Like it, yeah.
I'd rather have Italy and Budapest than Trieste.
Me too. That was I was hoping. It felt like it gets your army forward a little out of position, but also helpful to.
I agree with out of position because this is Gunboat. We can't coordinate. So I want all of your units on your front line. Like if you have 3 Austrian armies and 1 Italian army on the front line against Russia, that's useless. Like you have no idea what I'm going to do. My army is rogue. So I don't think it's actually good for a shared front line.
So Saren, I see this, quite a bit. Obviously, you attack Trieste, you bounce in Romania. Tell us why. I guess you were in for a penny, in for a pound on the Russian attack, or what was your thought process?
I mean, yeah, I was just attacking Russia at that point. I probably should have let him in the Black Sea and like gone to Sev. But like I mean, obviously seeing the moves here, then it's easy to say that I should have let him into Black and gone to Sev. But no, yeah, I was pretty much just fighting Russia here. Not much to see.
Well, yeah, you don't know if Sev is just going to support Ukraine into Romania. It's hard to.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to know, but what I'm curious about, Russia gets no builds here, and I'll let either Dave or Kutusov talk, but the bounce in Sweden seems to be a momentous decision here. It gets Russia no builds when England's opened up north, and also Kutusov bounces in Belgium. Dave, why don't you first give your impression of an abysmal 1901, and then let's hear Kutusov respond.
So, first moves in 1901, I think essentially, man, this is going to be a really rough game. I hope Germany lets me into Sweden, or else England's going to just roll over me, or Turkey will on the south. And then when I saw that I got bounced out of Sweden, my only thought was, well, I just got to pick who I'm going to really be a dick to this entire time, because this game's just not going to open up for me. And I would really like to hear why exactly I was bounced in Sweden, because when England's opening north and Turkey's opening south, if I don't get Sweden, then I'm done. And my assumption is that once England does roll over into St. Petersburg, there's really only one way for his fleets to go. And all the dots are going to be like Denmark, Holland, Sweden, Kiel. So I'm wondering exactly what you saw there, Kutusov, that made you think that was the correct decision to make.
No, I usually bounce when I play Germany. I determine if to bounce Russia and Sweden and based on which ally I want to pick, regardless of how they open. But this might be of my misconception of Gumbo, because this usually works out in press, but I'm more of a press player than a Gumbo player, so maybe it was actually better to let you in Sweden since it was a Gumbo game. But at the moment, I was planning that to still continue with England, to get Sweden as my next center. But then I saw that England built the army in London instead of a fleet. So at that point, I saw England completely explode. I said, screw it, I'm going with France. But it was completely, I would change my mind every time. So probably the bounce in Sweden was a mistake. Yeah, especially since I'm sorry for doing that.
But this is a jump ball. Anyone can answer this question. Looking back on it, and I've looked at the map a couple of times, should Ruhr have supported Burgundy into Belgium, giving France 3 builds with England so exposed north?
No, absolutely not.
Never.
No, never.
That's just not the wine talking.
No, absolutely not. Why should you give France 3 builds? Like even if I'm Germany allied to France, I want Belgium for myself. There's absolutely no reason to give France Belgium there. Like I don't see a world where if Germany gives France Belgium, he ends up ahead in terms of the partitioning of England ahead of France. So no reason to give him Belgium now.
If France gets Belgium, that doesn't
even if you want
an additional.
Even if you want to ally with France.
You can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Even if you want to ally with France, giving them Belgium is an issue because they have a much easier time taking out England than you do. They build that fleet in Brest. They have that fleet in Portugal, which can go to Mao. They're going to have a much easier time convoying armies onto the mainland, the island, or just even taking Liverpool and London than you ever will. And so if you give them Belgium, you're essentially just supercharging them to your own detriment.
I completely agree with the supercharging point. With 2 builds, France is already building probably Fleet Brest, Army Paris. So what is the third build going to be? It's going to be a fleet in Marseille that'll never get to the theater in time, or it's going to be another army that can only attack you in Germany. Like, how does that help anything at all?
Okay. Okay, I found this interesting on 2 fronts. Let's take the first one. Army London. This is, in my mind, a fairly bizarre play. anyone justify it other than just a signal that he's going north and he doesn't want to be anyone's enemy?
Oh, it's not really justifiable, but essentially what it means is I want to be your bitch to France, and that my entire strategy after I take St. Petersburg is to going to crash and just come down onto Germany as hard as I can. And I want to show you that no matter what you do, no matter what you build, no matter what your position is, that's what I want to do, and I'm going to stick to it.
All right. Saren, you built an army in Smyrna. The thinking is what?
An army is more immediately useful to gain control of the Black Sea adjacent area and then expand from there. Like, the fleet is useful to defend against Italy. I was not fussed to spend like half the game defending against Italy, so I decided either I'll build the army and he will take the sign of friendship and go fight Austria, and I can fight Russia and have a good game because Russia got no builds. Or Italy will attack and then my game is tanked, but whatever.
All right. The interesting build is the Army Rome, which of course I saw before Borge talks about it. Saren, tell me what I should have been thinking as soon as I saw that.
I mean, maybe I'm biased because I'm extremely hostile to Italy and Trieste, but as Austria, I would be thinking, well, this is great. I can now just take back Trieste, kick him out back down to 4 builds, and then only then we can worry about whether I want to work with him or not, because he got to get out of Trieste first.
And maybe that would have been a good strategy because Russia's got problems up north, and you built. I don't like the army as Austria, but you can manage a game against Russia. Borge, why'd you build the army in Rome? Was it always lurking there to eventually come and get me? Help explain. You could have built an army Venice, but you built in Rome.
Okay, so another fleet would not have helped me here. There's not enough territory to shove that many fleets into Turkey, and I mean, I didn't know this at the time, but obviously with Turkey not building a fleet at all, there's literally zero opposition there. So another fleet would have forced me to use it against France or do absolutely nothing with it. I would rather have the options around the Tyrolia area. I'd rather have some capacity to mount a defense if France decides to send, the army currently in Spain to Piedmont or something like that. Like, another fleet doesn't do anything for me. Armies are options, and I didn't want it in Venice because that would be hostile. So,
were you worried that I would attack Trieste? I guess you had to be worried about it, but did you think that you gave enough of a signal not to have that happen?
I mean, if you wanted to make that decision, that would be your call. I would not see us as working together if you were attacking me. You would have had to be very delicate in your signaling that was purely a defensive move. But if you were going to defend Trieste, you should have done it previous season, not a season later. All
right. We'll go to O2, and Borge, I'll just stick with you. You moved to Tuscany, and everything else, we're coordinated on. And it looks like, we're starting to roll here pretty well.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't mention this earlier, but all the moves against Russia really threw me for a loop. I would never have guessed the Sweden bounce. That does not make sense to me. So the fact that all 4 of Russia's neighbors were all going after Russia, even the Smyrna build, as opposed to a fleet, every single Russian neighbor was going after Russia. So for you, it seemed like you could expand north and I could expand east, and that could be a good thing. And I, at this point, wasn't strongly thinking about, I didn't always have a dagger in your back. The plan wasn't always to stab. The plan was just to maintain as many options as I could, reasonably maintain, which you let me maintain quite a few. I mean, I wanted to expand east, and I wanted you to expand north, and that seemed perfectly viable at this point.
Hey, Pez, what are you thinking at this time? You're watching the game. You're GMing it.
At the time, I had not a strong idea, but going ahead with the seasons, I saw you became the real killer of the board because you continued to go east, and you had a direct confrontation with Turkey and with Russia, and you seemed not to stop for any reason. You didn't protect your back against Italy, and Italy didn't attack you, and you were at full steam against Turkey and Russia.
Yeah.
Apart from this, I saw in the north England could get the whole Scandinavia because Russia was engaged on the south, and with a single fleet, he couldn't balance the strength of England.
Okay. Saren, you're in Romania. I guess there's no better place to be. I mean, you're just trying to signal, hoping something breaks up at this point, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that describes it pretty well.
All right, and Russia, you lose St. Petersburg, you get Sweden, but things aren't looking good.
To put it mildly, yes. I take Sweden because I know that there's no way I can keep St. Petersburg. He's going to be supporting himself there. And I decided that for whatever reason, I was most annoyed with England. So I moved Warsaw up to Moscow and probably made a mistake in not moving Ukraine to Romania. But I kind of thought that Turkey would be the fleet into the Black Sea this time. I didn't want to lose Sebastopol. I put the premium on that rather than Romania. What shocked me the most, though, is that even with an Italian army build and an Italian army in Trieste, that Austria kept moving against me anyway. And once I saw that, I thought that the South was lost and that my best bet was really just to move as much as I could north.
Yeah, my feelings with Italy at this point are like, I want a girlfriend. Sure, you know, the girlfriend is kind of giving me hints here with the army build that she may not like me that much, but she did move to Tuscany, and I was just in for a penny, in for a pound, and I continue that trend. But Kutusov, what I'm interested in here is a supported move to Helgoland. It seems like you would have taken Helgoland if you wanted to go that way, but you also could have gone to Baltic and taken Sweden, where you a supported move to Baltic may have worked. Tell me what your thought process was.
No, as soon as I saw that England built an army in London, I thought, okay, I'm going after England no matter what. I didn't want to bounce Russia again in Sweden, so I just, since I had nothing really interesting to do with Denmark, I just supported it in Heligoland.
Just a quick question for anyone who wants to talk. When I play Speedboat, I just glance at the other side of the board to see what's going on, but I don't have a lot of time to give it thought. I'm more concentrated on what I'm doing with 5-minute moves before adjudication. Are y'all, which is a Texas saying, y'all the same way, or you have more in-depth look at the other side of the map?
I'm the same way. I don't have time to do a whole lot more than figure out what I'm doing and figure out my own half of the board. Saren makes moves in 15 seconds, so she has superpowers that I don't, so it's going to be different for her.
And I guess as Russia, you got to look at everything.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you're just so big and unwieldy that you pretty much have to be paying attention to everybody. About the only country that doesn't really affect you is France, but even they do because, you know, if they move on England, all the better for you.
All right, moving into the fall. We can see the AI continues to roll. Here, I take Bulgaria. I thought about supporting the convoy into Smyrna, but I didn't know what you were going to do, Borge. So I just went for the one I knew I could get.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I was also guessing in that direction, Syria versus Smyrna, trying to guess what you would do. I was considering at this point actually dislodging you in a GN and then giving you the retreat option, but it seemed premature, and I didn't know how you'd take that signal. And of course, you know, I'd still have the army in Tunis, so yeah.
Right. The gang up continues on Russia, Dave, with me taking Warsaw, but England, I think England was trying to cut support and didn't, and ends up in Moscow.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that they were trying to cut support. I think they assumed that Turkey would probably support themselves into Sevastopol with Romania. My hope here was that even though Austria had moved to Galicia and supported themselves to do it, that I could leave Warsaw open, because all my signals were essentially saying, look, Austria, I want to be your friend. You know, you can have a new girlfriend here. She doesn't have to be green, but it didn't work out for me. So I moved the fleet to Romania instead. And what I did with the Sweden fleet up there was I was hopeful that he'd do a southbound. It didn't make too much sense, but there was no way I was going to get Norway, so I was hoping he'd do a southbound, and if I supported St. Petersburg in, then I could keep it, but it didn't work out.
And Kutuzov, you take the North Sea and you support France into Belgium, I assume, to help continue the attack on England.
Yes, I did. I also thought of bouncing him in Burgundy, but then I thought, oh, that might be too much, and he'll probably support himself later. So I'll just leave it how it is and see how things develop.
So if you guys were against the support of France into Belgium this time, is it now a different situation? And do you think Kutuzov should have double supported Burgundy into Belgium?
Oh, he should have just supported himself into Belgium. Why give it to France? But you know, that's just my view on it.
No, I give it to France because I was already thinking that probably will have retaken it later, but I wanted to keep him building fleets. And also, when I do the FG, I usually give France, Belgium, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to get 2 English centers, and then I'm going to also get Scandinavia. So Belgium should be French in the total countdown of centers, but that was just my thoughts at the moment.
I may have overly judged Brother Board's writings as useless. One useful thing he does describe, I don't know if you've read any of his stuff, is that unlike in Press, in Gunboat, your triangle is your objective. You are trying to kill your triangle and stop. So there isn't a gunboat way for FG to go long term. Like, you need to be killing your hemisphere. So you're not really trying to make FG last after your initial target is dead. You're trying to position in order to be able to outmaneuver them and kill them. So you're not really trying to find like a long-term split. You're only trying to keep the alliance together long enough to kill England. And then after that, you're just trying to get the upper hand. So in this regard, the fact that you could have gotten Scandinavia should not preclude you from wanting to take Belgium as well, particularly given that you've already kind of given up easy access to Sweden. Like, in order to get another build here, you need a 3rd fleet to really guarantee it. So I would have been looking to get a 3rd fleet here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kutuzov. You want to respond?
Yeah, I agree with you. I haven't been playing much Gumbo compared to other people, so yeah, I'm here to learn, and probably I'll support myself into Belgium next time.
So, any thoughts on my grab of Warsaw? Because I had thought through a Turkish retreat to Serbia, and I wasn't opposed to it because I thought, oh well, the army will be out of position. Maybe it'll give Italy a little problem in Trieste. But should I have just gone for Mania with 2 and a beleaguered garrison situation and bounce Russia?
I mean, the way it turned out was good. Each of us got one build this year, if I remember correctly. No, I didn't. I don't think I got a build. Did I?
You didn't get a build.
But yeah, either way, like we still had momentum going. But you couldn't have known Warsaw. So I don't know. Like, did you think Warsaw was going to happen, or if you thought Warsaw was going to happen, then I think it's a decent move. I had been definitely debating whether to move to Serbia in order to prevent the retreat, but I was concerned about too much of the board turning green and you looking at it going like, what the hell is going on if Romania hadn't gone to Serbia. And I think that was the right call, because Romania didn't go to Serbia, it just retreated there. So it might have looked hostile if I'd done that, and then you'd have been looking pretty small and pretty surrounded by green. So yeah.
I thought about it for a while, but I really thought, looking at the map, that I would take Warsaw, which is why I ended up doing it. But
in that regard, it was an intelligent guess.
Okay, so here we go. It ends up working out, as you can see, except, and I always focus on my part first, so apologies to anyone else, but the move to Greece was a little disappointing. This is now my girlfriend sort of telling me I might want an open relationship.
This is your girlfriend setting up the destroyer in the Serbian army.
I didn't view it that way. I was like, this lady is seeing other people while I'm trying to just be with one girl, but okay. Borge, why don't you go ahead and tell me what's going on?
So, okay, Serbia, look at where Serbia is. It's in the middle of like, what, 6 centers? Like, if you don't get this thing destroyed, what the hell is it going to do? It's going to run around for eternity. Like, it needs to be destroyed. So yeah, we're setting that up.
I don't care about Serbia. I just want to go home. Albania to Greece map. You sound just like the first time we played virtual face-to-face, Forge. It was my first game ever, first game of virtual face-to-face ever. Very disappointed.
Okay. Well, it is what it is. Meanwhile, Russia, you've now fully committed to I'm against England.
Russia is firmly committed to being as annoying to England as possible. There's no particular reason for that. Not like I like the color red better than blue necessarily, but just trying to send as many signals as possible. Now that Turkey's not really a threat, that, hey, Austria, all these green armies moving towards you, you could turn around and face them and leave me alone. I would love that. So I'm moving the fleet back. You can have Romania. You keep that. I'm just going to take Moscow. Just let me be. Didn't work out, though.
So what I thought the moves were going to be, Saren, was I thought Black would support Smyrna to Khan and bounce, and Syria would move to Smyrna.
Yeah, no, those would have been better orders. I can't remember what I was thinking here, so I can't really give commentary on that.
All right. Well, if that had happened, Borge, with everything bouncing except you're now in Greece, which of the armies would have gone to Serbia? Like, how was I supposed to? Would I have just supported? I probably would have supported Albania. I mean, sorry, Greece back to Serbia, or Greece to Serbia.
I hadn't thought about it like to the nth degree tactically. This turn I was primarily focusing on trying to guess in terms of Syria versus Smyrna, trying to guess Turkey's moves. So I hadn't put a ton of thought into that. But I mean, I would have expected you to retake Serbia, given that was your center. I was just mostly there to prevent any retreats. And it was entirely possible that I would bounce in Greece too. Like, I did not know that I was walking into Greece there. So another possible move here would have been Bud to Sir, supported by Bulgaria, and Serbia attempting to go to Greece and that causing a destroyer in the Serbian unit. That's why I moved into Trieste to prevent it from going there. So I don't know, like, there's a lot of permutations that could have happened here.
Yeah, okay. Kutuzov, take us to the west here. France had a successful convoy, and you lost the 50-50 guess on Edinburgh versus York.
Yeah, I knew that my game would have depended on this 50-50 guess. I first put Yorkshire, and then at the last minute, I changed to Edinburgh, and it failed, obviously. And from this moment on, I was just worried that France would get too ahead of me. And in fact, that also explains why I took Belgium the next season, I think. So
Correct.
yeah,
You take
season.
Belgium.
I took Belgium from Ruhr, and also I tried to signal that I didn't want to, I didn't want to go against him. It was just to try to keep things, the center count equal. But then I suspected that he wouldn't forgive me for that. So, and from that point on, the West would be total chaos, and England would resurrect and kill France, and also almost kill me. So,
I was
Ed, please, excuse me, Ed, please go back to spring 93, 1903. Okay, two funny things I see. If you consider Balkans, you see 8 black arrows. So 8 units going into the Balkans or going out or moving in the Balkans. I've never seen it. It's an highway. Everyone is moving without any obstacle, and this is funny because it changed the map from spring to fall totally. The second one is if you consider from spring 1903 to fall 1904, UK was so under siege by Eber, that was France, and by Kutuzov, that was Germany, that has that had the coast so filled with bounces that it was impossible for Germany to get into Britain his convoys. So it was very difficult for Germany to get a center, because if you consider, go for a moment to spring 1904. You can see the whole coasts are filled by bounces, so it's impossible for Germany to enter. It was a luck for England to be attacked by both France and Germany at the same time, because they filled every possible move.
That's a really interesting way to look at that. In game, I looked at it completely the other way. As soon as that army landed in Clyde, I just concluded that England was dead, and it was just a matter of a short amount of time. And it absolutely amazes me that he survived to the end and then also came back strong. Like, that army in Clyde should be dead. I'd mentioned that, like, I hadn't spent much time looking at the other side of the board. I stopped paying attention to the West for like 2 years because I just assumed that they were in the process of wrapping up England. And the next time I looked over, England is like doing very well. And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Well, okay. So let's talk about spring 1904. I know earlier you said you wanted to be in Tyrolia, but this was really disappointing to me personally, which I totally get. But I was hoping you would move to Piedmont, because I was like, well, France is really tied up against England right now. That this would be a good signal of a long-term relationship, committed to the monogamy, if you will, if you would have moved to Piedmont. What was your thought process?
Oh, I mean, that's not a factor at all. There is no monogamy. This is gunboat. You kill your hemisphere. You kill your triangle. Things were going well against Turkey. You're next.
Okay.
So yeah. Be aware of that in gunboat. It's like, okay, so you're shooting for 18. You're like pretty close to 18, right? You're shooting for a strong board top. Trying to maneuver that across like 2 hemispheres while there's another guy who could attack you, who you're just kind of leaving in your midst. It's just an inefficient strategy. There was one other. Okay, so I'm setting up right now. I think I made a one standout move in this entire game, and everything else was just playing the opportunities that were handed to me. And this is the setup for it. As soon as I saw Germany turn on France with the Belgium thing, I was concerned about German growth. I've done some analysis of the scoring, the results in season 1 of Gunboat, or Speedboat rather. Not only is Germany, like, by a factor of 2, the strongest scoring power on average, Germany has, give me a second, Germany has 4.5 solos. The next runner-up is 3 solos. So like Germany is both the strongest power on average and the most likely power to solo, and they've gotten the most likely power to board top rather, and they've also gotten our only solo and also a 17-point board top. Like, so I am very, very keenly aware, based on the meta in this group, that Germany is a real threat if they start getting rolling, and this is them starting to get rolling. So I was Tyrol is a good place to be in if you don't have anywhere else to be in, because, you know, infinite options. But also I was setting up for what ended up happening with Munich and Berlin there, if things continued to progress that direction.
Dave, jump in here. We've skipped you for a season or so. Thoughts?
So these moves for me were basically Austria. At this point, I'm way more annoyed with you than I am with England. Why won't you turn to face that green monster that just is growing right on your doorstep? They're in Greece. They're in Trieste. Their fleets can destroy yours. There's another army in Venice. Leave me alone. And again, it didn't really work. The most interesting thing I think that's happening on this map is that gigantic mess that's going on in the British Isles. I think he's correct when he says that German growth is possible here. It certainly is, but that whole log jam will be hard to break through. So if I'm Austria, I don't really take that move to Tyrolia as I want to go against Germany. I just assume that's going against me. And what did you think about that move?
I was in for a penny, in for a pound with Italy, but I'm learning in real time here. Okay, well, Germany does get into Burgundy, and then we see Italy in fall 1904 makes a move, which I totally viewed as anti-German at the time.
I think it seems like Germany viewed it as anti-Italian, or sorry, anti-Austrian, because he didn't defend against it. I was hoping that the ambiguity of that would prevent him from defending, which worked out in my favor.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was convinced that the Italian move was anti-Austrian. Then I saw him going in so easy, and I said, God, if he's really going to, I can't believe if he's really going to try for Munich. I hope that this is all a feint to then go against Austria. Instead, he just got Munich, and I was so pissed for that. Yeah,
Sarah, my game comment on what's going on too.
I mean, I don't think there was any need to go to Munich. I agree with Kutuzov. I think going for Vienna there was just made a lot more sense, which is probably why he didn't expect him to go to Munich either. But he did, so it's what it is.
Borge, did you think about Vienna, Budapest?
I mean, I didn't expect both to be open is a real gamble there. But anyway, I wasn't done with Turkey, right? Like there was still, things weren't settled enough in the East. I had 1 to 2 units that were spare. I did not have enough to open an entire other front. I had 1 to 2 units spare. I wanted to time the attack on you after I'd gotten some more gains off Turkey, after Turkey was in a weaker position. Particularly, I've been hoping the previous year that Turkey would destroy their fleet and then leave them completely with 0 options in the Black Sea. If Turkey had destroyed the fleet, then I would have attacked you immediately. But didn't destroy the fleet, which was the more logical move. It's just I didn't know what to expect after the decision to not build a fleet in Winter 01. But anyway, yeah. So basically, my thinking here is 1, that Germany is about to run away with the game, like we've seen Germany's in our group run away with the game repeatedly, and I wanted to shut that down. 2, Germany is currently the only one who can outrace me, even if they don't like completely run off like to a ridiculous degree. Germany is the only one who can outrace me right now, and I want to put a stop to that. And 3, if I can find something useful to do with those 1 to 2 units and hopefully bore a build off Germany for a year or 2, then if I'm in Berlin and or Munich, then that is an excellent position to pick up a unit, give my unit something to do, make Austria worry less about my units floating around in the middle of the board, and then 1 year later, bring the entire thing down, like an entire kind of sea of armies that have just been in reserve, to try to pick up Warsaw, Vienna, and Budapest in 1 year. That was the plan. I failed to pick up Warsaw, and that cost me the ability to ever get Warsaw and Moscow this game. I think my failure this game was the failure to get Warsaw in the mid game.
Okay, Dave, another signal to me that I should be really thinking about not fighting you by the disband. And then here we go. I continue to press. I think I pressed the wrong way for whatever it's worth. But we're coming up to what I think is my biggest of a few mistakes here in this game. But anyways, we continue to press the attack. You moved to Silesia. I really, at this point, I was happy. Just like Kutuzov was sad. I was like, oh, okay, now this is good for me for sure. And I know I'm getting 2 builds. Kutuzov, why don't you talk about what's happening on your end? You see this, you must be very disappointed with the Silesian move, and then you're making good progress against France.
Yeah, things were, it was a bit chaos, but things were going pretty well. I had the North Sea. I also got into Picardy. I was ready to get also Paris soon. Then I see this Italian unit in Silesia, and I'm not sure how to make of it. So I thought, well, he might try for Berlin, or we might try for Munich, but I don't think he really will. I think probably it's just to scare me and not continue to attack France, but I don't think he's really going to do it and save it.
All right. And we move to the fall. Turkey is basically dead, or about to be dead. And Tyrolia, the big move here, goes to Munich. Did you think about supporting Munich at all from Ruhr?
No, I haven't thought. I was more actually concerned of Belgium. I don't know why, but I thought that England would have done something weird there. Will start acting weird since he couldn't get the North Sea. I mean, apart from, I was sure he was not going to get Brest, so I thought he was going to get Belgium. But no, I thought a little bit of defending Munich, but I then decided not to.
Forge, is you kind of given the plan and your thinking, but your priority of Munich is for soloing.
There was no priority. It was just a guess between Berlin and Munich. It was a 50-50 on that. My expectation was that Kutuzov, or I guess I didn't know who it was, but my expectation was that Germany was going to defend, because why wouldn't you? And there were enough units to defend Belgium as well, like Picardy, Burgundy, North Sea, all of those could have defended Belgium. In his position, I don't think I would have been so all out against France while also trying to maintain the North Sea, which is an anti-English position. So yeah, I didn't expect the moves that he made. So what I was expecting was either Ruhr supporting Munich to hold, because Burgundy couldn't support Munich to hold because it was going to get cut, or I was expecting Munich to Berlin and Ruhr covering Munich. He could have done both. He could have done Munich to Berlin, Burgundy to Munich, Ruhr support Burgundy to Munich. That has a 0% chance of failure. However, in that case, then objective of shutting down his growth is still achieved. He's a sitting duck now. He can't do anything until he decides to get some momentum in another way. So win-win-win.
Darren, did you have a thought on this? Your video is gone, so I don't know if you're still here or not.
Sorry, what's the question? I just got back.
The Munich, the attack on Munich at this point.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that so much, which I mentioned, I think, just now, just because, I mean, he's not going to be able to hold on to Munich, and there's really no need to go for it when Borg is saying himself that he can just pretty much resolve his own side and get the vast majority of the dots there. And since this is a 1912 game, there's no reason to not just, take the board top and then camp on it to the rest of the game. Nobody can do anything to you, is the way I see it. You don't need to
from this position, I'm not confident I can get a secure board top. Okay, so basically my experience has been, and this isn't, you play more gunboat than me by far, So my experience basically has been that you rarely have an opportunity to prevent someone in gunboat on the other side of the board from running away with the game. And if that starts happening, then you kind of just got to take your lumps and deal with it. This was an unusual position where, as Italy, everyone had their backs turned to me, like even including Turkey, like everyone had their backs turned to me. So I could have prevented France from running away or Germany from running away. I couldn't have prevented, as we saw later on, England from running away. And despite the fact that right now, England has had a rough opening and I've had a basically perfect opening, England still almost caught up to me by the end game. So I think it was definitely correct for me to have shut down any chance of German blowing up here, which he could have done. Like, he just took Paris, right? So, like, this is a good season for Germany if I hadn't been interfering. Yeah, with this game could have definitely evolved into a German runaway faster than I was able to run away if I hadn't done this move. So I think this is actually like my one standout move this game. Everything else was just completely ordinary. I think this was a good move.
All right. This where I think is my biggest failure. At this point, I should have turned right now on Italy. This was my opportunity. And as I struggle to think why I didn't do it, maybe it was the time, maybe I was worried about Russia, but I feel like I could have slowed down Italian momentum significantly had I done that. Instead, I pressed the attack on Russia. This is where I basically gave the game to Borg. Does everyone agree?
Yeah.
I think so.
You killed all his opponents.
Sorry,
So,
everybody.
if I was you reading this, Russia's dead. Turkey's dead. It's just me and you now. Russia, you can mop them up for another build. That's it. So, like, the source of basically neutrals, i.e. weak players, is out. It's me and you. That's where this is now. So I was basically coming for you. I was just timing it right. I would have expected you to come for me as well. You notice that I didn't even attempt to move to Trieste. Like, I just expected that you'd be in there and you had the force to take it. So, like, I just expected that to be gone, and then you didn't really take it. So that just worked out for me kind of.
Yeah, no, I knew at this point it was too late for me. But I mean, I knew when I saw the supported move into the Aegean and the taking of Khan that it was over between us, and it was just and I should have made my move, and I was just killing myself at the time. But okay,
there's no other thing for me to do here.
Right?
Like,
Yeah, I agree.
all my units are behind you. Like, they're not going to go anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. But okay. And then we sort of play it out at this point, and it sort of goes on. Although I think you support me into Warsaw. Why do you think I'm that? What was the point of that? If you think it's because I'm that, like, gullible,
a good question. I don't recall. Possibly this was an attempted. I think this was an attempted engineering a 2v2, but I don't recall. That was not that big a move in my book. I don't think. Was it because I was? I don't recall.
I mean, Silesia just supported Warsaw to hold. There's nothing really wrong with that. And obviously the double cut here risks losing both dots, but I don't really think Russia cares at this point. Like, he's just dead. So.
All right. And the game sort of plays out to form.
But anyway, in fall 1907, I see the first attack against Italy of the whole game. No, maybe when you get to Trieste back, maybe fall 1906.
Are you talking about the Austrian move or the French move? Because
Austrian Budapest to Trieste. It was fall 1906. It was the only time of the whole game in which Italy was attacked.
Well, there was the French attack, which was much, much more substantial, because that wasn't really an attack. That was just a weak defense, really, on Austria's part. But yeah.
All right, so we're moving into a bit of a French attack, which, you know, when you're sitting in a game and you're getting bombarded, which is what happened to me, and I'm getting what I deserve. Of course, I'm wanting Germany. I'm wanting France to see the threat of Italy. I think, Darren, the way you described it in our first recording, this was pretty noble of France at some level to try and launch the attack against against Italy, while opening up his backside completely to England.
Yeah, this is like the problem with a 1912 game, is that like what France is doing here sort of has to be done if anyone wants to have a chance, because like it's 1907 and you can make a case that there's still a chance for everyone if Italy can be sufficiently weakened. But like at the same time, it's just England is the only one who really benefits out of this, and like benefits a lot. So like if France sends everything at Italy, sure, Italy might lose their chance at, like they might have a reduced chance at a board top, but like the person who's going to be taking over that chance isn't France. It's always going to be England. So it's just like, what are you going to do?
Right. And yeah, we still see this a little bit as it plays out, but it's really just sort of according to Hoyle at this point. Boards, you're just doing what you need to do, and you're you lose Tunis for time or whatever, but you're never in real danger.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm never in real danger, but I'm definitely in danger of being completely stopped. Like I had to destroy the previous year, I think. If I was England, I would not have attacked France here. I would have let France continue to throw everything in the wrong direction, and I would have taken some German dots. No downside to that, in my opinion. That maintains the power balance by pitting Austria, France, and Italy against each other in a way that's basically fairly stalematy. I don't expect any of them to blow up, and if France starts blowing up, I can just send some units down at my leisure. And gives me an opportunity to get some dots off Germany, who is more of a threat than France because Germany doesn't really have anywhere to go. So yeah, I would not have attacked France at this time. And if I think that if England had held off the attack on France for maybe a year and a half more, something like that, he could have possibly taken the board top this game. That said,
this was totally disheartening to me, by the way, to see that attack on France.
Yeah. I think it was a misplay in that the French move against me was the only time in the entire game that I had an obstacle, and it was a substantial obstacle because I was overstretched. And if you let one player go the entire game facing zero obstacles, they just win. Like it's that simple. So if you want to not let them win, then you need to let obstacles appear in their way.
And so France turns back against England, and at this point, it's done.
I'd say it's been done for a while by this point.
It's been done for a while, but if there was any hope of stopping it, it's ended by this time.
Oh yeah, it's over.
I think that what Boriging said at the beginning, that in Gambot you have to dominate your triangle. England at this moment had the total domination of the seas in the north, and I believe he trusted he could steal Denmark, Holland, Belgium, Kiel, so to overtake Italy in the rush to 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the center count right now, what is it, like 12-7? Like, he really thinks he can outrace me at this point?
No one can.
Yeah, yeah.
I think in 08, though, there was a chance of putting you at bay a little bit.
I agree.
But, England's underage, so he didn't have permission to come on the program, and I'm going to give him as much credit as possible, because if I was underage, I could not play. And Kutuzov, you're hanging on as best you can at this point, but you see it inevitably. I essentially dictated the outcome of your game. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, my game was finished as soon as Italy got Munich. From that moment, it was just me trying to survive and hoping that England or France wouldn't dot me. But France and England both dotted me at times, and I was about to throw the game, but then I would control myself and try to stop a possible Italian solo and hang on my last centers.
Who do you guys think had the best play this game? I would have to give it to England for the strength and speed of his comeback, for defending and then attacking, doing both of those well. Any other candidates for best play?
I think, well, you won. I think when you win, by definition, you played the best.
I think the board gave me the win.
I don't just say this because I'm not a very nice person. I think there was almost no good play on this board. I think overall the quality was very poor.
It didn't stand out to me. The final game didn't stand out to me.
Okay. So Borge won a crappy game. That's all it is.
I wouldn't say crappy, but yeah, it didn't stand out.
Okay. Pez, David, why don't you talk a little bit about Nexus's plans to continuing Speedboat games on?
Yeah, the Speedboat was a great victory for us because there are other servers that run casual Speedboat games. And when we tried to create the Speedboat League, someone told us that it was not possible because Speedboat is just for fun, and people don't like to be in a scheduled event that can last 1 month, 2 months, made by 10, 20 games. Instead, it was good in its first edition, and it seemed to be even better in its second edition. There is a game running just now. I'm GMing it, and some of the players that are in this interview are playing. So my congratulations for them that can participate in a conversation and play in the game too. Apart from Speedboat League, we are starting a Gunboat trophy in January, and the season 6 of our main event in February. In February, there will be the beginning of a Cold War tournament too. So we have many tournaments running in parallel. And we are thinking of a overall trophy to give a prize to the player that does better in all these events. So we will post about it in some days.
Okay, well, that sounds good. And Borge enters the Hall of Fame of Nexus with this victory.
Yeah, he does.
I note that if you're a main event finalist, you get the Hall of Fame, but if you're a finalist in the Speedboat, apparently you don't get the Hall of Fame.
No, the Speedboat has at the moment has too few players because we had 28 players, so we don't think it's fair to give Hall of Famer to the best 7 out of 28. It's a bit too easy.
I'm just trying to add to my Hall of Fame. That's all I'm trying to do.
You already are in Hall of Fame.
I'm trying to add. Okay. Does anybody have any final thoughts? Does anyone not plan to continue to play Speedboat, even though I will be playing, which should be incentivize you not to play any further? I play Speedboat for fun and to help me improve tactically. I've learned a lot from this conversation, and I appreciate everyone coming on board. Does anyone else have any final thoughts? Okay, no. So, well, congratulations then to Borge for the victory. Thanks to all of you for coming on. I hope to get this recorded because we're not going to do it a third time. Dave and Saren, particularly, I appreciate it. And thanks to diplomacybriefing.com, where you can get all the latest news on diplomacy. And everyone listening to this who's not a part of the Nexus Discord server, you'll see a link on YouTube. Please join it if you're interested in diplomacy. You'll see all sorts of skill levels from extremely poor like mine to Borge, who won, and everybody else on this board. So thanks so much, guys.
Congratulations to everyone else who made it to the finals in the Speedboat.